Have you noticed how quiet life has become for them lately? Not the gentle kind of quiet that brings rest, but the heavy silence that presses on the chest and makes every thought louder. The messages slowed, then stopped. The people they expected to stay close drifted away. Conversations that once filled the day disappeared without explanation. It felt as if they were pulled away from everyone at the same time. Not because they chose distance, not because they asked for space. It simply happened. And in that stillness, a question began to echo. Did they do something wrong? Were they forgotten? Was this silence a sign that something had gone terribly wrong? At first, they tried to explain it away. Maybe everyone was just busy. Maybe seasons change. But the loneliness lingered. The days felt longer. The nights felt heavier. It seemed like everyone else was moving forward while they were standing still, watching life pass by. The quiet didn't feel peaceful. It felt exposing. It forced them to sit with thoughts they had avoided and emotions they had buried. And the hardest question rose again and again. Why would this happen now? But what if this loneliness was not loss? What if it was alignment? What if the silence was not abandonment, but intention? What if the noise had to fade so they could finally hear what had been whispered all along? There are seasons when answers do not arrive loudly. No explanations, no announcements. Just space. The phone stops buzzing. The calendar clears. Familiar voices grow distant. And the world that once felt full becomes strangely empty. Empty in a way that removes distractions. Empty in a way that demands honesty. In that stillness, doubts surface. Old fears rise. Insecurities speak louder than before. They wondered why it hurt so much, why separation felt so personal. But slowly, another truth began to form beneath the confusion. Maybe this quiet season was not evidence of absence, but of attention. Because often, before the greatest shift in a person's life, everything familiar is gently, sometimes painfully, pulled away. Not to punish, not to delay, but to prepare. Isolation comes before elevation. And isolation always feels confusing when its purpose is hidden. At first, all they could see was what was missing. The absence of support, the lack of affirmation, the distance from people who once felt essential. The loss was obvious. The lesson was not. Growth was happening beneath the surface, unseen and uncomfortable, because the deepest work is rarely done in public view. Silent suffering is not wasted. Before visibility comes invisibility. Before influence comes isolation. Before authority comes surrender. There was a young man in ancient times who understood this pattern well. His life did not rise smoothly toward success. It dropped first. He was betrayed by those closest to him, sold away, stripped of everything familiar. He spent years forgotten in confinement, surrounded by stone walls and unanswered prayers. Yet even there, he was not abandoned. In isolation, his character was shaped. Patience replaced impulse. Discernment replaced reaction. He learned to listen instead of demand. What looked like delay was actually formation. He was not being hidden because his story was over. He was being hidden because it was not ready to be revealed. Isolation has a way of removing what applause builds. It reveals who someone is when no one is watching. It exposes motives, wounds, and fears that success would only cover. That is why it hurts. Distractions disappear. There is no one to perform for, no one to impress. Only the truth remains. Many people ask for open doors, favor, and opportunity. Few ask for the inner strength required to sustain them. The heart is refined in private long before it is trusted with public responsibility. Who a person is becoming always matters more than what they are about to receive. During this season, relationships are often rearranged. Voices that drain energy fade away. Environments that keep comfort high but growth low are left behind. Sometimes even personal plans are disrupted. What feels like rejection is often redirection. In the silence, wounds that busyness once covered are gently exposed. Pain that was ignored comes into view, not to shame but to heal. Nothing is uncovered to embarrass. It is uncovered to restore. Long before promises are fulfilled, others have walked this same path. One man was asked to leave everything familiar without knowing where he was going. No details, no timeline, only direction. He had to walk alone before he could step into what was promised. Another spent decades far from power and recognition, learning humility in the desert. Strength was stripped away so trust could grow. Confidence in self was replaced with confidence in obedience. Even the greatest example followed this pattern. Before public purpose, there was private testing. Before crowds, there was wilderness. Authority was forged in solitude long before it was recognized openly. Every meaningful calling begins in a lonely place. When the crowd disappears, clarity increases. When approval fades, purpose strengthens. When comfort leaves, faith deepens. When no one is clapping, perseverance is learned. Closed doors remind them who truly controls access. When affirmation is gone, identity is formed. This is why rushing out of the quiet season only delays its work. Something solid is being built. Something rude, something that will not collapse under pressure. Isolation also brings buried things to the surface. Fear that was avoided, doubt that was suppressed, pain that was never faced. Not to overwhelm, but to heal fully. Exposure is not cruelty, it is care. In the stillness, priorities are reshaped, relationships are redefined, self-perception is refined. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, strength begins to grow where weakness once lived. And one day, when this season begins to lift, understanding follows. Nothing that was meant to stay was lost. What left had completed its role. What disappeared could not survive the future ahead. Space was being made for something greater. Protection was happening behind the scenes. They were being spared from burdens they were not ready to carry. From connections that would have caused deeper pain later. From older versions of themselves that could not handle what was coming next. Suffering does not last forever, but it always leaves something behind. Endurance becomes strength. Waiting becomes wisdom. Preparation comes before promotion. They were not forgotten. They were being formed, not buried, but planted. Seeds grow in darkness before they break the surface. Progress often feels invisible until suddenly it is undeniable. Waiting is hard, especially when others seem ahead, especially when prayers feel unanswered, especially when effort goes unnoticed. But no season is skipped. Refinement is happening. Sometimes separation is necessary, so instruction can be heard clearly. In noise, truth is drowned out. In stillness, purpose whispers. Faithfulness in quiet moments builds futures unseen. For the next few moments, there is a simple practice. Breathe slowly. Let the shoulders relax. Acknowledge the quiet without fighting it. Ask what this season might be shaping, rather than what it is taking away. Sit with that question. Let it settle. Stillness is not empty, it is active preparation. Here is the truth they eventually understood and will never forget. Growth happens in the quiet. Growth happens in the quiet. When the time is right, clarity arrives. The reason for the silence becomes clear. What once felt like abandonment is recognized as alignment. Until then, trust the process. Stay faithful. Continue forward even when progress feels hidden. Growth happens in the quiet. If this story resonated, gently like, share, and subscribe so others can find it too.